Well, in 1990, I had worked for 5 years out of college for a fantastic firm, Connell Development Company. But the economy was dead, the S&L crisis had hit, so I lost my job. And started with a free office in Nathan D. Meyer Engineering's firm, who had one phone line remaining and one free office, and the receptionist said, "Good morning, Todd Interests." That's how we got started. The mission of Todd Interests ultimately is to provide value. It's super exciting when you get to work in things that are enduring and ennobling and classic, and that's a big part of the preservation world. In 2007, we acquired the historical post office in downtown Dallas. Angela Hunt was a council member at the time, and she was the one person that I knew appreciated preservation. And Angela met me at the building, and she brought two wonderful people who have since passed, Virginia McAllister and Neil Emmons. And really from that meeting, Virginia and Neil helped me with Angela's leadership understand kind of 101 preservation for dummies, how to move forward.
So I joined coming up on 7 years ago after being with HFF for a while and being in a real estate firm in Richmond before that.
And I joined 4 years ago after being with Bank of the Ozarks, which is a big construction lender, and another company called Lone Star Funds. Patrick and I both wanted to start our careers elsewhere and learn different aspects of commercial real estate from other firms that now are trade partners of ourselves. And it was really great for me to learn the banking side of the business and the lending side, and for him to learn the advisory side was awesome.
I grew up in a little town, Ada, Oklahoma, and I'm thankful for my years there. And we traveled a lot into the old world when they were young, and we started appreciation really probably starting at Roman architecture. And then that's where we started getting great appreciations for great piazzas and for great columns and for great ornate emblems. And then you get into great stone and you see just different things around the world.
We were raised in homes that were built in the 1920s and 30s and 40s that Sean and Cheryl took over, gutted, redid, and brought back to life. So even as kids, we were very accustomed to living in a quote-unquote older home.
Yeah, I mean, I bought one of the homes that they grew up in, we bought directly from Mr. Fouché's daughter. And it was just awesome to live in a Fouché and Cheek home, so it's just really cool.
It was really fun to understand those buildings, and the post office being the true first historic renovation that he did while Patrick and I were in middle school and high school.
Whether it's the lobby of this building or the 100-year-old lobby in East Quater or the 90-year-old lobby in the post office, each of these designs has proven the test of time.
The National, which is where we are today, has been my primary project for the past couple years. It's a $465 million redevelopment, one of the largest redevelopments of a historic building in the state of Texas. There's so many things that are unique about the National. The architecture itself, George Dahl and Thomas Stanley were kind of Dallas's premier architects. It was built for First National Bank as their headquarters. A 52-story tower in 1965 was the tallest building west of the Mississippi River. Seeing it throughout the years, growing up in Dallas, go into disarray, and then being able to bring it back to life, to where we have apartments, a hotel, multiple restaurants, event spaces, and public spaces for people to gather. Man, there were a lot of challenges, but thankfully we had a really, really good contractor in Andrews Construction and a great architecture firm in Merriman Anderson. There was a little thing called a global pandemic that hit right while we were under construction. And so in March of last year, we went from 545 workers on site to 45 workers and quickly had to figure out all the necessary protocols, make sure everyone was safe on site.
The National was my first commercial project to work on. The library, this room, so all of the walls in here are historical. So they were taken down, refurbished, put back up into place. The butterfly wallpaper, the birds on that chandelier actually welded off of my parents' benches in their backyard and gilded gold. And so we got really creative, but was really a collaborative effort across the whole project. George Dahl really left us a jewel in the Dallas skyline, so we wanted to preserve a lot of the history of the building. So all of the, the marble facade that was from the same quarry as the Parthenon, to the teak and brass-clad walls. We wanted to not just preserve them, but highlight them. And so a lot of that provided the foundation from, where we were going to go with design. And so that we kept a lot of that Art Deco feel, all while bringing in a well-traveled approach, that mid-century feel.
It's great to see the pinstripe lights come back on the building, as a lot of people that are from Dallas remember those when they were really going in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But architecture is just part of it, right? When you bring life into an asset, that's what really interests me. So when there's people in this restaurant, there's people checking the hotel, residents are enjoying their life and the amenities on the 9th floor. People are coming down here to shop. This building needed to be repurposed for the city of Dallas.
To work on a project the size of the National, it was a huge undertaking. I worked over the exterior. We had a group that worked on the interior, a group that worked over the apartments and hotels.
Todd Interests had folks here daily to make sure that their vision and their attention to detail was being picked up. Merriman Anderson Architects folks, they were, of course, they're right across the street, but they were also here daily, making sure we understood their design intent, and then making sure that the historic criteria was being picked up so that we could make sure to get the funding for the tax incentives.
I believe there's over 110,000 square feet of marble under the exterior facade. A lot of the marble had been weathered over the years. They measured it, removed the marble pieces, shipped it off to China. China is the ones who provided with the high-cone system, which is this aluminum backing. So it's basically a veneer piece of marble, but it's a lot lighter.
I think those lobbies downstairs are one of our proudest moments. You look at the refurbished materials, whether it's the marble floor, the travertine walls, the wood paneling, Todd Interests, whether it's Philip Todd or Caroline Todd, ready to answer a question as soon as you almost thought about it. They were eerily there before you thought about it. So being able to work with somebody that driven to make sure that we're going to be successful, it was a great opportunity.
We chose the name East Quater for this part of town specifically so that it didn't have a specific boundary like a square, a circle, or a drive. East Quater is 32 contiguous properties spanning 8 city blocks. Our buildings are of the same vintage as those in Deep Ellum in the West End, so early 1900s, 1900 to 1920. So you have everything from the original Cadillac showroom to the Magnolia and Petroleum gas station. So these buildings, when they were built, they're brick, timber, and stone, were originally built as retail showrooms for automobiles at the turn of the 20th century. Our goal in East Quater was to provide an urban, authentic neighborhood that was also sophisticated. If you look at the tenants that are currently in East Quater, almost every single one of them features their office space on the homepage of their website. Many of the buildings didn't have electricity or running water. Some had dirt floors. And so there were some that were maintained, but others hadn't been touched since the 50s. Truly great neighborhoods are marked by public art and world-class public art. There are countless reasons to preserve historic buildings. A new one that we've seen here is just the demand for people, not from a monetary standpoint, but people really desire to be able to come to a historic building every day.
The East Quater really represents this amazing preservation of these 1- and 2-story brick historic buildings. The Todd family has taken those buildings, breathed new life into them. So the East Quater really is a linchpin in the puzzle of urban development. Working hard together to save these structures creates an environment we cannot recreate. We cannot scrape a building and create what we see here today. Adaptive reuse is really what's brought life back to downtown Dallas. It is challenging to take on historic preservation, to take on reimagining a structure that was built in, the 1950s.
We started doing preservation projects out of a gravitation from repurposing malls and retail centers in the late 80s, early 90s.
The ability to take old buildings, historic buildings, and repurpose them gives you a character that the new builds oftentimes can't compete with that character that comes from redoing something old. So as Dallas is full of lots of new developments, which we're so thankful for, being able to incorporate the old into things has allowed us to differentiate ourselves in some regards.
You just get such craftsmanship and workmanship that doesn't come with modern day development. Now the key is you've got to take a historical building and bring it to modern day standards. And so many people just don't go to that process.
We want these buildings to be lived in again and experienced in their original splendor, not just a museum piece that people can admire how you've restored it.
Exactly.
But it needs to be functional.
There's a lot of firms that are really, really great, successful firms, tech firms, consulting firms, law firms that can pay the rents to be in a glass skyscraper, but it doesn't fit their corporate image, right? They come in and they see these buildings that have ghost signs from the old automobile manufacturers of the 1920s and brick and timber and stone emblems in the floor, which you can't recreate today. And they go, wow, that's cool, I want to be here in this building.
You're representing craftsmanship that doesn't exist any longer. Secondarily, you're maintaining a fabric of a city that you're communicating to generations that will come long beyond us, hopefully.